Hey, my name's Chris. Welcome to Backyard FX, the show that teaches you how to make cool effects for just a little bit of this. And today we're going to be making a man-eating plant. Today's effect has been requested in the forums by Movie Fanatic 4562080 and eman6 every month. To determine today's budget, we're going to connect Gary live in New York. Gary, can you hear me? Gary, spin the wheel. Well, looks like we lost him. So today's budget is $35. To make this build, you only need two things: carnivorous plant, some radioactive materials. Well, now that our radioactive materials have been confiscated, I guess we'll have to do this the hard way. This is a challenging build, so fasten your seatbelts and hold on. To build this plant, you'll need vinyl and latex tubing, elastic cord or rubber bands, thin picture hanging cable, a bunch of eye screws, small nuts and bolts that will fit through the hole of the eye screws, a dowel, pipe insulation, liquid latex, black, white, red, yellow, and various shades of green acrylic paint, some fake leaves, which I found on these tulips, and fake lilies. You will also need some foam packing material and a small piece of scrap wood. And if you want to give your plant somewhere to live, you will need scrap plywood, a flower pot, and dirt, moss, or other ground cover. Simple time lapse! Woo! Cut your dowel into 1.5-inch sections. Drill holes into the end of each dowel and insert an eye screw. Next, cut your latex tubing into 1.5-inch sections. Slide a piece of tubing over one end of each dowel. Fold back the tubing and link the sections together with your nuts and bolts. Slide the tubing over this joint. Carefully drill holes near the end of each dowel, turn it over and do the same thing on the other side. Now screw more eye screws into the end of each of these holes. Next, run your cable through the eye screws. Use vinyl tubing at a joint to limit how far it can bend. To make the spine bend in an S shape, have the cables switch sides in the middle. Once you're satisfied with the movement, wrap the spine in the pipe insulation. Next, paint the stalk green and set it aside to dry. To make the flower, first cut the flowers off the lilies. On the outside of each petal, staple the two sides together. Run a rubber band through the top of this ridge and leave it dangling inside. Next, remove the wires from the lily stems and use them to form a triangle that will act as a hinge for the petals. Bend the ends of the wires inward and temporarily tape these together. Cut out a wood triangle and drill holes in each point to fit the hinge wires, and drill a hole in the center. Remove the tape and use some of the vinyl tubing in its place. Fit the hinge wires in the holes and put your mounting screw in the hole in the middle. Attach 3 eye screws on the underside and split the end of a short piece of cable into thirds, running each section through an eye screw and fastening it to each petal. This will form the mechanism that will allow you to open the flower. Form some thorns on the ends of each of the flower petals with liquid latex and tissue paper. Attach the rubber bands to the mounting screw with just enough tightness so that the petals will snap back into place. Using some foam packaging material or anything thin and pliable, cover the inside of the flower, leaving the screw visible. With the flower wide open, attach this to the petals with liquid latex and tissue paper. Do the same thing on the outside of each petal to cover up the hinges. Once this is dried, paint as desired, blending into the original colors of the petals. Attach the leaves to the corners of this flower. To better control your puppet, attach some dowels to the end of the control cables. To give the flower a home, cut a piece of plywood smaller than the mouth of the pot and cut a hole in the middle of it big enough for the stem. Mix up some grayish-brown paint and paint it. Set this in the flower pot and insert your flower. Cover the plywood with your ground material. You'll want to plan your shots out ahead of time so that you minimize the wear and tear on the puppet. In order to use your plant as a puppet, you'll need to remove it from the pot and film accordingly. Well, that's it for this week's episode of Backyard FX. If you have any questions, comments, or thoughts, make sure you leave a note down below. Bye, everybody. See you next week on Backyard FX. In order to get your plant to stand upright like this, you'll need to insert a thin dowel into the stem. It's a miracle. I have fingers. They look like people fingers.